welcome to Fuji International Speedway and the first race of Japan Cup, their second weekend of this year's championship. A fantastic place to go racing, a beautiful circuit and a real great challenge that many of our drivers will treasure in their hearts. A real favourite Japanese venue, and it is the second weekend of our championship, which marks the first weekend of the SRO Power Tour, which means the Japan Cup racing alongside GT World Challenge Asia. Overcast skies for this afternoon's first race of the weekend, but it may well be the better condition because tomorrow we are expecting some precipitation, and therefore drivers will be hoping for a clean run of things in today's action. Sugo, a world away from Fuji in terms of the way the circuit layout is, a very club circuit kind of feel at Sugo. This obviously a circuit built for Formula One back in 2005, originally built in 1966 and originally homologated as an oval. Here is the circuit map in GT3 land. The lap record set back in 2018, a 1:37.0. Not quite close to that any longer with the Pirelli tyres that we have today, but two very different characteristics of circuit with very undulating and flowing first and second sector. The third sector much more low to medium speed and a real need for decent traction to get you out of that final corner and down the 1.2 kilometre straight. Say a real favourite for drivers, and a great party atmosphere thanks to the Power Tour. There is a Lamborghini Countach, thanks to Bingo Racing, who have supplied a beautiful collection of supercars, both in the paddock and also here on the grid. Now that looks like a brand new version of the Countach. What a special machine. The Lexus LFA alongside it, and celebrating both the partnership that SRO Asia have with Toyota and also of course this circuit itself. Let's have a look at this circuit through a driver's eye with Jackson Evans.
Hey guys, you're on board with Jackson Evans for a lap from the driver's eye at Fuji Speedway in the number 15 Audi R8 LMS Evo 2 for Phantom Global Racing. Obviously super long straight here at Fuji, so really important to look for that brake marker at turn 1, sort of aiming for the 120 mark. Really hard brake back down to first gear, making sure we get to that curb on the inside. Can get pretty loose on the exit there, but important run down to turn 3, which is a very fast corner here. In the Audi we stay 4th gear, really trying to maximize that inside curb. Really important not to run too wide as there's track limits violations there, and then probably one of the best corners, a long double right here. Really hard to keep the car on the edge and the mid-corner speed up. Again, focusing on the brake, getting down to the apex here at turn 6 before another long run down to the chicane. Little bit tricky as the tyre starts to go away. Don't want to run too wide as there's track limits violations. A really hard brake once again at the Dunlop Bridge here, back down to first gear. Really good passing spot, trying to maximize that inside curb, open up the left here. Again, driving it off nice and hard, use all the track. Probably one of the hardest last sectors that we go to, all about flow here, using all the track, trying to keep that minimum corner speed up. Back to second gear for turn 15. Really important to get that inside curb, help pull the car around, watch the track limits on the exit. And then the last corner, really wide entry. We try and open up as much as we can so that when we do get back to the throttle, it's a nice square exit and we can maximize that speed down the front straight. As I said, it's very long, sets up some really good passing opportunities down at turn 1. So hopefully you enjoyed a lap on board with me in the Audi R8, and thanks for tuning in.
The rolling foothills of Mount Fuji, not visible today sadly, but is up there somewhere at 3,800 meters overlooking the Fuji Speedway Hotel, which is that shot in the foreground. A great museum in there as well. And we have been racing already before at Sugo, as I mentioned earlier, in May, and so championship standings look like this with Bingo Racing and their new Porsche leading the championship by a single point over Max Racing, and their Mercedes and champions last year a single point back in third position for Cornez Racing. We're going to go down to the grid and we're going to have a chat with Hana, and I think she's catching up with Cornez Racing.
I'm here with pole position of Japan Cup, car number 19, Hamaguchi 選手、ポールポジション獲得おめでとうございます。今日の一番大事なポイントはどこですか？
スタートの1コーナーまでにポジション取られないように綺麗なスタート切りたいと思います。
かなり暖かくなってますけど、コンディションはどうだと思いますか？
タイヤに結構きつそうな温度なのでタイヤマネジメントしながらレース運びたいと思います。
ありがとうございます。頑張ってください。
So we are going to go and have a chat with a few more of our competitors. The grid just as entertaining and busy as the GT World Challenge Asia grid was just a few moments ago, with those added supercars at the front of the field. I believe there is also some samurai swordsmen somewhere on the grid. I'm sure we'll catch up with them shortly. There is the number one machine from Cornez Racing, the Ferrari 296. Now that is an Evo machine. We've got some cars that are non-Evos. As Kawabata looks on, he is not yet fully suited up because he will be in second in the car, the pro driver taking over from the AM in race number one. That one is not an Evo. The Evo pack on some of the other cars in the field. What does it mean? Well, it kind of means that there's potential for the car to be stronger, but it's quite hard to realize. There's so much more to play with on the car, which if you have enough time and if you have enough expertise, then you can get the best out of it. And we can see that at the Spa 24 Hours a few weeks ago, but it's hard. Let's go back down to Hana.
I'm here with P3 of Japan Cup, car number 88, Uematsu 選手。Uematsu 選手、P3 で満足してますか、このスタート？
満足してないですよ。もうちょっとだったんで、ちょっとミスもあったし、もうちょっとね、いいところを狙えたんじゃないかなと思うとね、もちろん悔いはありますけど、でもこれがね、この決勝で一番前にいることが大事なんで、そこに集中していきます。
スタートで気をつけたいところはありますか？
もちろんね、前にフェラーリがいるんで、フェラーリの前に出たいですよね。はい。
頑張ってください。
はい、ありがとうございます。
So he says that he's not very happy with a P3 start. Obviously, as a driver, he wants to start from P1, but he's going to do his best to make his way up there and have a good start.
Yeah, but you can't be that unhappy. I mean, there was a big gap with the pole man, 0.7 of a second between P1 and P2, but Uematsu was right on pace with P2, just a tenth behind the Cornez Racing number one machine. So I don't know if he can be that unhappy with it. Here is the Audi of Jesse Strimner, who I noticed with the partnership now with Cornez Racing. Obviously Jake Parsons' team, we mentioned a little bit earlier on in qualifying, was sort of a separate entity, but they've moved into GT3 racing for this season, and I have a feeling that they possibly are enjoying a little bit of expertise from Cornez and the garage sharing that they have. Audi, of course, one of the older homologation of cars, first homologated in 2016. The R8 LMS has been evoed since, let's say, as the Countach rolls off the front of the grid. So I think somebody managed to control the Samurai, so they didn't interrupt our grid. And the two supercars head off into the paddock area, leaving our racing supercars at the head of the field. Lamborghini represented, and that's so good to see because it's not a car that is particularly easy to get on with, and eventually had success in Europe, but it took a long time. Let's go down to the back of the GT3 field and chat with Betty Chen now.
Hi, I'm here with car number 97 in Japan Cup, Betty Chen. Betty, I've seen you here many times at Fuji Speedway. How do you like the circuit?
This circuit, it's a bit difficult for me because this race is the first time that I'm back after the big crash I had last year here. So it's just a bit scary for me, so I'm just trying to get used to it, but it's a long track, it's a fun track.
Great, well, I'm looking forward to seeing you make your way up the field. Good luck.
Thank you.
As shunts go, it was a pretty good one from Betty Chen. She just about missed her braking point in a GT4 car going into the first turn, and at kind of unabated speed managed to get through the gravel and up onto the catch fencing on the outside of turn number one. It brought to an end our Japan Cup race last year. So first time back here, now in a faster car, and you know, in a GT3 car, after 1.2 kilometers of accelerating all the way down the main straight, you are pretty much at terminal velocity, so you do not want to get your braking point wrong. Betty at the tail of the field, sharing her 97 K-Tunes Ferrari with Shinji Takagi. Max Racing looking strong, had a good couple of results in the last weekend in Sugo on the podium, in second position in both of the races, in fact, with Uematsu in his McLaren third in both of the races. But it was a shared apiece for the number 9 and the number 1, who took the 2 victories. A little bit of chat in the Ponas Racing Ferrari. That car based literally across the road from the Fuji circuit here, Ponas Racing. Also, of course, in Super GT, a very well-known tuner, car tuner, I think you call them over here. And did not have the point score that they would have liked in Sugo. Suzuki and Yamasaki down in 10th and 8th. Points on the board pretty much for everybody who took part. And we do have a few new drivers. This is Galar. There she is with her sunglasses on. Obviously Galar not being her real name, but she is a big fan of the red-breasted cockatoo, would you believe? There's something you didn't think I was going to say in commentary. And that's why she's called Galar. Now, she obviously hasn't done her research when it comes to the Australian definition of a Galar. If you don't know, look it up. Jake Parsons knows. He was, or is Australian, as well as been racing in here in Japan for 7 or 8 years now. Races under a Japanese license. This year, he didn't. I'm sure he didn't last year, but they're both him and Jesse Sumina are registered as Japanese. Just the one non-Japanese entrant in the grid, and that's Kelvin Ho, who is in the GT4 car with Maya Orido, the Mercedes We've got 3 different GT4 cars. I think I said quite stupidly that there was a BMW in the field. There isn't a BMW, there's a Toyota, which I am reliably informed is powered by a BMW engine. The Mercedes, obviously, GT4 machine, and Porsche powered by their 4-litre engines, but the Toyota with a 3-litre turbo, inline 6, if you are that geeky about motors. There's our leader. Expect the number 19 to disappear up the road in the first part of the race. Hiroshi Hamaguchi, a bit of a Lamborghini specialist. He's raced Super Trofeo for many, many years. And when he does come and do GT3 racing, it tends to be in a Lamborghini. Team FFF, a 5th and a 6th in the results from Sugo. Both, I think, interrupted by safety cars, if I'm not wrong. And there is the K-Tunes Ferrari. I say the K-Tunes Ferrari because, of course, there is a K-Tunes Lexus also on the grid. Here is that grid of 8 machines. GT4 AM with Team Pop Race Mercedes on the pole position. The Pro-Am category has the Porsche on the pole, but there is only one car in Pro-Am. In Pro-Am in GT3, it is the Corners Racing #1, champions last year, and AM ahead of them, because of course qualifying was an all-AM affair. Spirited FS Racing on the pole position in the number 19. And the gap was large to the number 1, 7/10 of a second before you get to the second place car. Very close between second and third, with Uematsu sharing that second row with Jesse Strimina. And then the championship leaders in 5th position alongside the guys in 2nd position in the championship on that 3rd row. 4th row, Ponos Racing and K-Tunes Lexus. And then we have an old Ferrari, the 488 for Takashi Toyoda, and Betty Chen lining up alongside him. Norik in the 181 Ferrari, and Galar in her Nissan Nismo. And then the final GT3 car is Takashi Sano, 5-star with Team Dream Drive. The 3 GT4 cars, a Porsche on the pole, Mercedes 2nd, and the Toyota of E-Needs Racing, a new team, in 3rd spot. Lights off on the safety car, coming towards that final part of the lap. They will line up in 2x2 formation after their 2nd formation lap. Don't forget that the clock starts when they begin this 2nd formation lap, so they do end up losing a little bit of racing time by this 2nd formation lap. But it's very important for our AM drivers to feel comfortable and get rid of all those nerves. A minute and a half or 2 minutes, let's say, under safety car conditions, not really enough to calm everybody. So temperatures, pressures up in the car and the mechanical bits, and hopefully pressures down in the fleshy bit, the brain and the car. Hamaguchi, Suzuki on the front row, Uematsu and Strimner, row 2. Takai and Shibata on row 3, Shijiku and Suenaga, Toyoda and Betty Chen, Norik, Galar and Sano. Those are your GT3 competitors in this first part of the race. Makano, Orido and Murase in GT4. It's a long, long, long way down the straight towards the lights before we can go racing. And it does look as though Shijiku holding back a little bit on the outside line. Maybe he will move forward, but he is giving a little bit of space to Hamaguchi in the Lamborghini. A lot of space for Hiraguchi in a Lamborghini. Whether that's going to be deemed a jump start by the Lamborghini or a slow start and out of position by the Ferrari, by the time we get to the lights, maybe they would have sorted themselves out. We can now go racing, and it does look like a pretty even start from our front row. Not too many people fanning out. Uematsu looks to the inside of the Lamborghini, who hasn't made a good start, turns in on Uematsu. There isn't contact between the two of them. I thought there would be, but it has allowed the Ferrari around the outside. We've got a car off in the background, and side by side between Lamborghini and McLaren as they kiss towards turn number 3. A little bit of contact between the two of them. Suzuki leads, two cars off in the background, spinning out of contention, and I think that was Takashi Toyoda being at least one of them, and it may well have been the 96 of Suinaga who went with him. Not necessarily a particularly strong lap. There is the Lexus, and it has ground to a halt by the looks of things. Hopefully they can get that going again. Here's Suzuki, and the Audi's lost a lot of ground, hasn't it, on the first couple of corners, swimming down to 7th position. Galar lost a bit of ground as well, but really the big losers were Toyota and Suinaga. I think it was the Audi wide at turn number 1, and that is why they have lost that amount of positions into this tricky final sector. Suzuki from Hamaguchi at the head of the field. Then a bit of a gap. I think the McLaren maybe munched up here by the Mercedes into turn number 1. The Audi making progress further back, trying to get past the Bingo Racing Porsche, and we go safety car because the 96 cannot be moved. So straight down to safety car conditions rather than full course yellow. The safety car is already out on circuit, so can gather these cars up, and an opportunity to catch our breath after a rather frenetic first couple of corners, where we've got the number 1 at the head of the field. Hamaguchi not strong in the first couple of corners. And here is a replay of the start. So look, Uematsu with a better start down the inside of the Lamborghini, and suddenly gets the feeling the Lamborghini is not going to let him through. Further back, let's have a look. Yes, the Audi just gets elbowed off the circuit, and he's on the curb there on the outside of turn number 1, and he basically can't get the car back because it's sort of bottoming out. And then look at the back of shot. Oh, dearie me, the Lexus. I think they're absolutely turning around the Ferrari. A proper pit maneuver, as you'd see from the police if you've ever been in a police chase. I doubt many of you have. What is curious about that is it didn't look like the biggest of spins, but Suinaga has not been able to get that Lexus back going again. He's sort of got it to a relatively safe place, and it might have already even gone behind the wall, but I'm surprised he couldn't get it back going again. Takashi Toyoda, the number 66, was the other car involved. He's now joined the back of the field, so lucky for him there's a safety car because he gains all the time he's lost. I wonder whether he's got much damage to that Ferrari. A new driver in that number 66. It's obviously the older Ferrari. There is the car guy Ferrari. What does the front end look like? Well, I think it looks pretty untouched on the front end. And even I think the drivers and the team trying to have a look to see if there's any damage to the car and try and work out side-by-side contact, or it was very much nose to tail for me. But the fact that the Lexus has come off worst suggests that the Lexus possibly was the instigator and has bent steering. Yeah, look at that. It's what they're struggling with to try and get the car into a safe position. They can't really tow it correctly because it doesn't seem to want to steer. So that would suggest the Lexus went into the back of the Ferrari. Detective Ben will put his hat on, take his hat off actually now, and we'll go back to commentary of the race in a second. The car's being led around by our championship sponsor official Toyota Supra safety car. Nearly bought one of those last week. And what can Hamaguchi do on the restart to try and get past Suzuki? Uematsu wasn't particularly strong in the second phase of that first lap, but seemed happy in the first part. Here we go on board with Takai. And look how much Uematsu gets squeezed through that first turn. It's the Ponos Racing Ferrari that squeezes the Audi off the circuit. Thank you very much, says Takai, who's able to take up one position. And it's behind him, I think, then, where the accident occurs. Which means it wasn't a very good start from the Lexus. Halfway through this second lap behind the safety car, and I think we will be getting our race back underway. Just waiting for the safety car lights to go out. I think we've got everything sorted. Contact will be investigated after the race. And indeed, now control is being given to Suzuki to control the field. Hamaguchi tucking up underneath that rear wing, trying to predict when Suzuki will go. And has he gone there? One corner before the end. Yes, he has. This will allow Hamaguchi, if he's clever, to drive a different line and maybe gain up some ground. They leave the final turn and we go back to racing here in Fuji after just a couple of laps behind the safety car. 50 minutes still remain, and one big slipstream train down towards turn number one. The McLaren looking strong in third position. Maybe a bit more track lost, a bit more momentum lost from the Lamborghini. Uematsu looks to the inside. No space there. Hamaguchi late on the brakes, and actually both of them perhaps compromising each other, because Shibata in the Max Racing Mercedes closing in mid-corner, but on exit, the Lamborghini and the McLaren looking strong again. Further back, a decent battle going on for GT4 honours, with Maya Rido at the head of the field there, ahead of the the Porsche in her Mercedes. And there is Maya running a little bit wide. Sorry, that's not Maya. That is the last two GT3 cars fighting over position. Galar and Sano. And Galar trying to find a way through on the Mercedes. Great to have a new brand and team with us. The 5-star with Team Dream Drive. And there is that GT4 battle I was telling you about, which has changed hands again because it's now Porsche ahead of Mercedes once more. But they are absolutely locked together. But actually not far away from... Who is that going slowly ahead of them? Oh, that's Toyota recovering in his car guy Ferrari. So perhaps the door was opened by the 488 to allow Maya Orido through. Maya, daughter of Max, who runs Max Racing. But our leading cars not quite close enough into turn number one to make a move. Don't forget, we'll be putting the pro drivers in these cars after the pit window opens at 35. A lot of them will be coming into the pits to take advantage of the early opportunity to get the pro driver in to maximize their stint lengths. And that is the idea, if you can. Sometimes there is other strategies that are available, particularly if you're an AM combination, those with the red background on their numbers, then they might choose to pit a little bit later just to get out of the congestion. very, very close between third and fourth going through the chicane there. Uematsu and Shibata as tight as the first two cars as well. Really, really tight between them. Hamaguchi absolutely with the 1 lap pace, 0.7 of a second, let's not forget, over the rest of the field. So he really needs to be released here. He needs to get himself past that number 1. Lots of varying racing lines through that final turn. Shibata able to carry lots of momentum onto the main straight, taking a different line, going wide at the start, cutting back later, straightening up the corner earlier, and now under the rear wing of the McLaren towards turn number 1. You're going to have to be brave on the brakes as well. First two not close enough for a dive bomb, but look at the Mercedes. Interesting. Interesting that he does not have the legs. I thought that the Mercedes would be strong down the main straight in comparison to the McLaren. We know that the Nissan is, but on evidence of that last attempt, no. On board with Shujiku and the Ponos Racing. He's in 5th position, 2nd in AB. Shibata is caught up actually, hasn't he? The battle for 3rd position, so he's very much now part of that. And Jesse Swimmer is behind them and will be also part of this. Could make it a 4-car battle. Oh, Max has got a bit of an overlap. Is there contact between the two? Not quite, but it was very, very close. And I'm not quite sure what Shujiku thought about benefiting going through the grass there. An unwise move and a very hard place to overtake into the chicane. There is no doubt. Max Racing getting frustrated. Shibata getting frustrated with Uematsu. Don't forget, different racing lines. Get yourself momentum. It's not worked out there for the 45, leaving the last corner. The Mercedes and McLaren disappear up the road, but as we saw last time, difficult to benefit for the Mercedes. What about the battle at the head of the field? Lamborghini versus Ferrari. Hamaguchi taking the racing line, forcing Suzuki to defend. What about the switchback? Allow the Ferrari to run wide, get more momentum from the Lamborghini. Not quite close enough to make that one work. Good opportunity into 3 if you're really alongside, but nothing doing. And again, battle for 3rd is the same situation. And here was that best attempt. Oh, if there wasn't contact, then there was certainly a little bit of kissing, but I didn't see any carbon flying. And Shibata did a great job. Don't know what Shizuku there was planning on doing, because he's just never going to get past in the second part of that chicane. Still, Uematsu holds on. This looks like one of the better opportunities for Shibata. Don't know where to look, do we? First two so close. 3rd position as well. Now, surely try something different here from Shibata. Different line, different momentum. Looks to the inside, but the McLaren covers off the inside line. So this could really work out, actually, for Shizuku, because Shizuku was the one that decided early on to run that wide line. Shibata was sort of middle ground and probably compromised by Uematsu. Head of the field, Suzuki under attack from Hamaguchi. Maybe there is an opportunity here. Not quite close enough, but certainly Suzuki was aware of the Lamborghini, and there is an overlap coming out of the turn. But the number 1 has the inside line going into turn number 3 and can squeeze that 19 out of the way. Turns in early though, gets the corner. And now Hamaguchi tries around the outside of 5. That's not going to work. Going to need a big braking zone. Back at FFF Racing, keeping their toes and fingers crossed, but there was no opportunity that time by. He's going to have to be more forceful, Hamaguchi, particularly if he can get alongside enough into turn number 1. Over the line last time, look, a quarter of a second. The battle, 2.5 seconds ahead, Uematsu, Shibata and Shujiku. Swimmer in there. Swimmer's actually lost ground to that 3-car battle. He's dropped off the back of them just a little bit, as we saw his teammate Jake Parsons getting his helmet on a few moments ago. Again, the Lamborghini very, very strong in the final sector. Choosing to go around the wider line, cut back, get the momentum out the turn. More speed earlier on, as more drivers get themselves ready. Kawabata with that distinctive hairdo. Not as close this time by for Hamaguchi, so Suzuki choosing not to defend. Hamaguchi looks to the inside, and actually that's tempts Suzuki across the road, but ultimately coming out of the turn, I think Hamaguchi's still going to be forced to be the wrong side of the Ferrari, and then it's really hard around the rest of the lap to do anything. Interesting to see that Meccano in the Porsche, in the GT4 Porsche, has moved ahead of Galar in the GT3 Nissan GTR, which isn't particularly correct, particularly when you think the Nissan's got a lot of straight line speed, and that is where the GT4 is at its weakest in comparison to a GT3 car. Ooh, that's a late move from Max Racing. Surely that's not going to work. Shibata, Opta, Mystic came from a long way back, but Uematsu's been racing far too long to allow that one to happen. And ultimately, I think Shibata knew that that was possibly going to end up in an accident if he didn't get out of it. There's one thing dive bombing, there's another thing dive bombing when the car behind doesn't see. Over the line for another time, a slipstream trying to be claimed by Hamaguchi in his Lamborghini. Off the tail of the Ferrari. It's not close enough this time, but at least what he's doing here, moving out of the mirrors, and that makes the #1 machine not know exactly where he is. So he turns in late. Oh, there's contact between the two of them. How unnecessary between the 11 and the... Oh, and the #1 has let the car roll into the gravel trap. That is an absolute disaster. He just about gets it back going again, but they've dropped behind the #9. They're down in 7th and 8th position, and all of a sudden Kawabata goes, oh, what on earth? And there's damage to the Lamborghini. Proper damage, and that car is going to need to be pulled over. Can't even limp that back to the pits. McLaren then leads from Mercedes and Ferrari. All change on lap number 10. All of a sudden it becomes a lot more serious for Shibata. He's no longer dive bombing for third, he's dive bombing for the victory. And oh dearie me, Hamaguchi pulling his car over. He sort of has found a gap in the fence, but it looks like there might be some sort of bridge there. Let's have a look at this replay again. He's nowhere near close enough to make a move, but I think by moving out into the middle of the road, #1 doesn't know where he is, so he turns in later. That opens the door, and then, there you are. And then there's a secondary contact there, and that's what breaks the rear end of the Lamborghini. It also puts the #1 in the gravel trap. First rule of crashing, keep your foot on the brake. So even if the first one wasn't purposeful for the #1, the second contact absolutely will be a slam dunk penalty from race control, allowing your car to roll into the back of another, because that's also meant the end of the race for the 19, joining the 96 in retirement. Now the question is, what are race control going to do with that Lamborghini? It feels like it's an incredibly safe place. There is a car coming over to potentially retrieve the driver, but will they allow that Lamborghini to stay there without having to call the safety car? Because we're getting to a point where the pit window would open and we don't really want a pit window with a safety car. It can be quite chaotic. I feel like we might have had both races in Sugo like that. Uematsu leads Shibata. Shijiku and Sumina, 4 together for the lead. Then there's a 6-second gap to Kai, and another 6 seconds to Norik. Quite surprising to see Bingo Racing struggling as much as they are with their Porsche, but maybe a reflection across the board that this is not necessarily a Porsche circuit this year. We see that GT World Challenge Asia as down the inside goes Sumina on Shijiku. And that puts the Audi up to 3rd position. And he's not far away from taking the lead either. Now, what would the teams do here? Shijiku as an Am-Am doesn't really need to pit that car. But the other 3 would like to get their pro drivers in next lap, I would have thought. But it might be beneficial to stay out 1 lap longer, depending on whether you are feeling like you're being held up. And the difference between Sumina and Jake Parsons probably not that large. Into the pits comes the number 1 then, so they also did pick up a puncture on the rear right corner. Try and get that wheel off now. But they are 30 seconds early for a driver change, so they're going to have to do that service. They're going to have to come around again and then do the rest of the service. Oh, no. Oh, no. Championship leaders out of the race. Damage to the rear right corner. And that is such a disappointment for Kawabata and for for Suzuki, sorry. The only saving grace that you could have for them is that they won the championship last year with just a single race victory, and they had a whole weekend in Okayama where they were off the podium. They were on the podium for the rest of the season. But that is day done, I'm afraid. Was it their fault? Be interested to see what race control say. Into the pits then. Pit window open. Uematsu, Shibata and Sumina. Don't forget, success penalties for our top 3 from last time, so there will be a success penalty for Uematsu and for the Max Racing Mercedes as well. Sasahara and Takai will also have success penalty, which will hurt them considering they're down in 5th position, and it'll be helmet off for the number 1 drivers and an early bath. Plenty of time, by the way, to do the service. Very, very exciting to see what Kenta Yamashita can do in that McLaren. See if that blood runs hot when he's in a battle, because he's going to be coming out, well, he's going to be coming out of the pits behind the cars that he was battling with earlier on, thanks to that success penalty from the last race. Max Racing there, the Mercedes, will also have a success penalty, and they should come out ahead of them. But the leaders are going to be those without success penalty. So the 45, I think, should come out in the lead, or the 27. It's the 27 Audi that leads the McLaren. And actually, the 45 didn't pit on that last lap. That's why it hasn't corrected on the timing screens. And if that is the, yeah, that's the 45 there, coming across the line for another lap. So Shijiku getting himself a 2nd clear lap. Now, will he be undercut because his pace is so much slower than those drivers that have just got in as the GT4 cars get serviced as well? Last lap of 43.1 from Shijiku. Let's see what the outlaps are for the rest of the field. And already Corners Racing going to work on that rear right corner to get it ready for tomorrow. Maybe even to get it ready to go out and do a little shakedown at the end of this race. So, Kenta Yamashita chasing down Jake Parsons. Sort of thing you might talk about in 2019. A little bit of a wibble and a wobble from the Audi. Yamashita not mammothly comfortable in the car in that McLaren in Sugo. First time in a GT3 car. First time driving that McLaren was on the Thursday test. And I do think they're going to try and get this number one back out on circuit again. Should be, therefore, a pretty simple fix. Shijiku heading towards pit lane. Where will he come out? He was in that fight for the lead. Doesn't have any success penalty to his name, so in theory should come out in the lead after the pit stops, but it does very much depend on the in and the out laps from the other competitors, and it hasn't been magnificently fast for Yamashita, who's now got past Parsons, and effectively that has moved Yamashita to the head of the field, but the 45 should come out ahead of them, especially if they get caught in traffic. That 44 machine, the GT4 car, going to be a tricky one to clear. And looks as though they have both done it, yeah. So honours even between the two. There's the Max Racing Mercedes coming through the corner in third position. And just seeing if that 45 is rolling yet, because 88 coming towards the final part of the lap. We're still servicing the water bottle going in. And actually, the 45 is quite far down pit lane, so even if McLaren here is on pit road, still an opportunity to release the 45 and get him out in the lead. And he is now rolling, but there's still quite a long part of the pit lane to get through, and I think that it might be too long for the 45. It is, and into the lead goes the McLaren, the second position to the Audi, and actually it looks like the 45 is going to drop behind the Mercedes. He does, into fourth position. So work now to do. Yamasaki taking over from Shijiku. Yamashita taking over from Uematsu. Parsons taking over from Swimina, and Motojima is now aboard that Mercedes in third position. Maya Rida, by the way, still up there in the GT4 car, because she has not yet pitted. She's the only one not to have pitted in our field now, and we're not getting far away from shutting the pit window, I wouldn't have thought. Still 2 laps, perhaps. Bamba in 6th, Sasahara in 7th, Takagi in 8th, Shirazaka in 9th, and Otta in 10th. Watch out for Sanaguchi. How far down is Sanaguchi? 2 minutes and 24 seconds back from our leader. Don't know if that's an accurate representation or still hasn't taken into consideration other things. But the fastest lap of the race coming from that Nissan on the last lap, and he may well go faster again. Oh, I could do with one of those. Yes, please. Yamashita over the line. Parsons dropping back from him. Motojima in the Mercedes in third. Yamasaki should come over the line in fourth position. The Ponos Ferrari, there he is. And then it's going to be Bamba, because Marido is in the pit lane. So the Norwich Racing Ferrari, second best Ferrari now, and in the 5th position. Yamasaki. Lukisa Sahara also doing fast laps, as you would expect from our championship leaders. 6th position now. 4.0 back from Takubamba. And you expect that gap to disappear, I would imagine. No challenge from behind. But it is Yamashita with an advantage. It's not a comfortable advantage, but he was able to take 7/10 of a second out of Parsons on the last lap. The problem is, behind, you've got Bamba going faster, you've got Sasahara going faster, you've got Motojima going faster, and probably the Nissan Nismo of Sakaguchi is able to take time out of him. Now, Sakaguchi probably is a unlikely victor, unless we have a safety car. He's a whole minute down from Yamashita. But the rest are closer. Let's get down to Hana, who is down in the pit lane, and she's going to find out more about what happened to that car, number 1.
I'm here with car number 1, who was leading the race and unfortunately had an incident. 鈴木選手、本当に残念な接触がありました。何がありましたか？
いや浜口選手と争っている中で、多分ブレーク争いしてたと思うんですけど、曲がった直後に、ちょっと接触があったんで、僕もちょっとまだどういう状況かっていうのは分かってないんですけど、後でちょっとビデオを見て、確認したいと思います。
明日のレースに振り返って頑張ってください。
はい、頑張ります。
So unfortunately, he was hit in the braking with Hamaguchi Senshu. He's not really sure about what exactly happened there, but they're going to do some talking to try to figure it out. And he's going to do his best for the race tomorrow.
That's what I like to hear. A little bit of discussion between friends out there. Obviously, a small community is our Japan Cup community. And so nice to have a chat and find out exactly where the confusion was. But you'd have to say that the Lamborghini was doing that sort of on purpose, moving around in the mirrors, moving out of his vision, so that the driver didn't know what was going on. Oh, there's the driver gradings there on the left-hand side, so you can see that Sasahara is a gold. You can see the AM drivers as well. That's gone now. That's a new bit of graphic that I didn't see before. And looking at our full field, down to Sasahara there in 9th position. Big gap to Takagi in 7th. Did I say 9th? I meant 6th, Sasahara. Sakaguchi in 8th. But here is car guy. Sorry, K-Tunes. Takagi. One time a dominator of this championship, the K-Tunes Ferrari. At the time, I don't think it was the, remember served correctly, it was a 488 rather than a 296, but a very, very strong team that I think have just been taken over by the level of the championship. They were right at the sharp end, but now, unfortunately, the sharp end has moved. Melvin Ho in the 44 GT4 machine, 2nd in GT4, but they lead the AM category because the Porsche is considered a Pro AM, and of course it now has its Pro in it. So it's going to make life even harder for the Toyota and Mercedes to chase down. And once again, watch what we saw in GT World Challenge Asia. Very, very calm affair. Short pit stop for the 935. That's a bit of a disappointment because Sakaguchi was starting to make inroads on the field, taking chunks out of them. But unfortunately, he's going to try a stop and go. So he has to go into his pit box, stop for a second and then drive off again. And that really will hamper his progress. But the rules are clear. Can't go too short on the pit stop. There's plenty of opportunity to work out if you are going to go under or not. And a clock countdown as you come in. You attack all the way to the line. Bang! Gets the speed limiter on early, actually. And then somewhere there'll be a clock telling him how long he's been in the pit lane. He's got to come to a stop for 1 second and then go. And then trundle along pit lane. And then once he gets to the end of pit lane, then the timer will stop. So if he knew that he had to do a 90-second pit stop, then it should have been clear to the driver inside the cockpit. But you're also not allowed to stop and let the timer elapse. So you do really need to work with your team to be released at the right time to get them down to pit lane. A big mathematical equation of distance, speed and time. Like you did at school. Remember that triangle, DST? Yeah, that one. Motojima chasing down Parsons here. The gap has been slowly decreasing for second position. Takubamba in third, Uke Sasahara in fourth. Will not be troubling these two. Yamashita has cleared off up the road. He's obviously got the match of the McLaren. I don't think we've ever had an overall victory for McLaren. Now, I asked that question last round, didn't I? I seem to remember, to see if Uematsu had taken an overall victory. And the answer last year was he wasn't even on the podium last year. Lots and lots of battling going on here for second spot. Uematsu's never taken a victory. He's been on the podium overall twice, but we are getting a little bit closer. There's Canadian-Japanese Jesse Shimona and the McLaren, the Mercedes defending hugely hard to try and stop Parsons from getting through. Parsons looks to his outside. They've cleared Bamba, so they don't need to be too worried about what's going on behind. They just need to fight for themselves here. They are keeping the Suinaga car at pace with them, because of course that car has had 2 pit stops now, so is right at the tail of the field, but finds himself in a battle and probably finds himself faster than the battle. Not quite sure how you deal with that. Let's see. $18 minutes remaining. Not sure where that whistle is from the Mercedes. As it comes past shot at high speed, it has a whistle to it, which presumably is an airflow thing. Motojima, 0.8 of a second ahead of Parsons. Still the battle continues. Still they have Sakaguchi in attendance, 1 lap down after having a penalty for a too fast a pit stop. But you can see that Nissan, and also with its grunt down the main straight, will try and get past the Audi, which is a bit of a weird one, because of course being a lap down it shouldn't be overtaking, and decides against it. But maybe Jake Parsons would enjoy having that Nissan there. Maybe the Nissan can pathfind for the Audi, move the Mercedes out of the way. Did you get the feeling that Jake Parsons can get past, or would get past, if there was an opportunity, but at the moment cannot find that opportunity? clearing the GT4 traffic for our second position car. And now Parsons gets through, so that's kept them very close with 9.35. Just a reminder that Sakaguchi is there down in 7th position, so as I said, a lap down off the rest of the field, but he is on the pole position for, or sorry, not on the pole position, but on the front row for race number 2. So it's a car that is capable of being at the very sharp end of the field, which is kind of weird. Therefore, he is racing with cars at the front end of the field, even though he is a long way back. Almost looks newer, this Nissan GTR, than the one in GT World Challenge Asia. They're parked next door to each other in the pit boxes here in Fuji. Whatever they are looking great fun to drive around this Fuji circuit. Here it comes again, looking down the inside. There isn't a space for him there. And can't find a way through. But what it is doing is preoccupying Parsons so that he's dropped now off the tail of Motojima, and it's given that Max Racing Mercedes a little bit more breathing space. Of course, Max Racing with the 2 second positions in the first weekend of action, so very much that's where its place is. Leader in GT3 AM is the Polaris Racing Ferrari in 6th position. And that is better than they managed in Sugo. So an improvement for Polaris Racing at their home circuit. Here are the remaining GT3 AM category cars. Shirazaka in the 25. That's that new entry, so second position is good for them. Hamaguchi out in the Lamborghini. And the 66 way back. Is that because they had an accident in the first part? I think they did, didn't they? So they're 9th overall, 41 seconds back from Shirazaka. There is the car guy racing 488 in 3rd. 14 minutes to go. I would say that Jesse needs to clear that Nissan. Let the Nissan go and follow him down the road, because at the moment he's losing time in the Audi to Motojima, and that is not helping his progress and attempt to be second. It would be a momentous occasion, because Audi and Jesse and Jake not been on a podium in GT World Challenge Asia yet, so it would be a great effort if they are able to do it. There's the GT4 class leader, the only car in the Pro-Am category. Down in 11th position with Kelvin Ho in 12th and Tetsuya Usaki in 3rd position overall, 3rd position in class, 13th overall. Great to welcome new teams to the championship, as I said earlier. E needs racing. Who needs racing? E needs racing. Telling jokes to myself now. And we do hope that we are able to fill that GT4 grid more and more. What about even the Cup class? It is open to GTC cars. I think it, in theory, is open to GT2 cars. As the 25 has pulled off the side of the road. Our new GT3 team, 5-star. And that's not as quite a convenient a spot as we saw the Lamborghini park. And I wonder whether that might require a safety car, or at least a full course yellow. And yeah, I would say you can get it into that slip road pretty easily. But by the time you've got a machine out there to do it and then go back to racing, it might have to be a full safety car process. That would leave us with very little racing time left. It would not be good news for Yamashita, who holds on to a 5.1 second lead over Motojima, another 3.3 seconds over Jake Parsons. Takubamba in 9 seconds back, although Takubamba has the best lap of the race to his name. Still waiting to see what race control do with this 25 machine. It's parked not far away from where the Lexus is, just a little further up the road. And literally, I think the next access point. We've got 3 cars now parked up around this Fuji International Circuit. There's your leader, Yamashita. Then Motojima in the Max Racing Mercedes. A lap back, Sakaguchi with Parsons in 3rd overall. There's our leading GT4 class machine. Norik Racing coming through shot. Uke Sasahara coming through shot. Now Sasahara is in 5th position, but as you could have seen by what we were just showing you there, a long way back from Takubamba in 4th. About 20, actually Bamba, according to my timing screen, there's only 10 seconds difference, but didn't notice that. There's your car guy, 488. Oh no, sorry, that's the K-Tunes car of Takagi in 6th position. Yamasaki there in the 45. And then waiting for Otta in 6th spot. Here is Otta. Katsuki Otta down in 2nd position in AM, 8th overall. Nine and a half minutes remaining. The Mercedes chasing down the McLaren. Is there a time coming down or going away? They've been pretty similarly matched in terms of pace over the last couple of laps. Over the line, Yamashita does a 40.4, but Motojima in the Mercedes, yeah, gives away 0.4 of a second, a 40.8 from Max Racing. Here we go, on board then with Yamasaki in the 45. See how this Ferrari's handling. Looks good, doesn't it, so far? Not too bad in terms of handling. Maybe the possibility of extracting a little bit more out of the car from Yamasaki. Leading AM though, of course. Don't forget, this is not a Pro-Am car. So AM driver in that car, and AM leading his category by over half a minute. So just doing what he needs to do, ticking off the laps. Long feathering of the throttle there through turn number 4, I think that is. 3 or 4, no, 3. There's 5 here, a much larger acceleration zone down towards the chicane. Now the more interesting part, the last part of the lap, where it's all about flow from left lock to right lock and then right lock to left lock. Letting the car move around on the circuit. Such a pleasurable corner that when you get it right, It's all about that last bit of the apex. What that noise was at high speeds, I'm suggesting that there was an interference from the camera more than anything else. So Sakaguchi then has moved away from the Audi of Parsons. He's got the 24 up the road. An opportunity to look at what a pro driver looks like in relation to an AM. We just were on board with an AM driver, but Sakaguchi, the pro in that car, in this Nissan. Let's see how it looks going into turn number 1. And look how he fights it more. Let's look at how he dances with the car. The car moving around underneath him. The steering corrections is him fighting that grip, showing that he's right on the limit of adhesion. Yes, the AM driver looked smooth in his inputs, but he just wasn't on the limit in the way that this Nissan is. Squeezes the accelerator hard, trying to get through this last section of turns. This is where there'll be a lot of little bits of opposite lock coming in as he nurses his car towards the exit curves. I think we can hear him talking to somebody. But in the very background, I can hear something as though he is talking. So Yamashita, there is the 66 through the shot of Otta. Here is the leader, Yamashita, the 88 car. Now with just 4 minutes and 15 seconds remaining of the race, and we could have a McLaren on the top step of the podium in Asia for the first time. Chased down by Motojima, 5.2 seconds to the good. He is safe in that second position. Parsons, however, we have to wait for the white car to go through. Here is the Audi, and Parsons in third position, being caught by Takubamba. On the last lap, it was 1.2 seconds in a particularly weak lap from Jake Parsons on the last lap. So we'll see if that continues onto this one and whether that's because he's munched his tyres. I'm interested to see that the cars that have retired have been sort of left around the circuit. They haven't done anything with that 25 car. It is in a safe position, but we didn't need to go safety car. So Bamba taking 0.8 of a second, then 1 second, then 1.1 seconds. Is it going away for Jake Parsons? Has he got enough time to hold on? Takubamba through the last couple of turns of the lap, missing the apex there a little bit. Let's see what the lap time is. The lap time is decent group of back markers for Yamashita to get through. Won't really upset anything unless there's something particularly dramatic, but perhaps the back markers might help Parsons and Bamba in their fight. Sasahara, having not made any inroads in his Porsche, in 5th position, struggling with the pace. And there is Tadao Uematsu, so happy on the podiums with his AM partner last year. the smiliest podiums you ever did see. But when he's in the box, he's ultra serious. Little bit of traffic for Yamashita to contend with here. We'll be used to that in the world of Super GT. All the various championships with slightly different regulations when it comes to blue flags. But having to make it himself work through the traffic here, Jake Parsons. Nobody's just jumping out of the way. Bamba and Sasahara getting closer as well. Jake Parsons, I think, has cooked his tyres. Last lap, a 42.0. Taku Bamba 2 seconds back, but lapping 1.5 seconds faster. So this is starting to get into the real critical phase. We saw an Audi in GT World Challenge Asia lose a podium on the final lap, and it may well happen again. We are on the final lap. There is Taku Bamba hunting down Jake Parsons. He's not going to be close enough into the first turn, that's for sure, but maybe into the chicane in the middle of the lap. Maybe that's the opportunity, or a cheeky slip into the final couple of corners. By far the best result for Norwich Racing since they joined us, if already in 4th position, but of course getting onto the podium would be another step forward. Sasahara behind, definitely struggling this weekend. And it seems as though in general Porsche are struggling, but it just so happens that Lauren Heinrich was doing Lauren Heinrich things to get himself for the victory. Sorry, not the victory. He was they were in 3rd position, weren't they? But a long way ahead of any other Porsche in GT World Challenge Asia. Last couple of corners for Yamashita. Kenton Yamashita hasn't taken long to adjust to this McLaren. Complained about a lack of seat time last time out, but the Toyota Gazoo factory driver who won Super GT in 2019, in 2024, in 2025, a champion in Formula 3, and now a race winner in SRO GT World Challenge Asia. He takes the checker flag, and finally we'll see Tadeo Uematsu on the top step of the podium. Another great result for Max Racing, a 3rd second position for them. And what about that final podium spot? Look how close it is, but it will be Jake Parsons to hold on for his Audi ahead of Taku Bamba and Sasahara in 9th spot. Waiting for our GT4 victors to come through. The other 2 cars already taking the checkered flag a lap down, but Suahiro in the Porsche should be with us shortly in the final couple of turns now, and it will be another victory for Sunrise Boulevard and Zengo RS Garage. Interestingly, overall in 10th position, but in GT4 they took the victory in both the races in the first weekend of action. And over the line comes 45, taking the AM victory for Ponas Racing at their home event, and a decent clear ahead of Ota in actually a gap of over, well, on the last lap. So 1 minute 21 seconds, the gap between Yamashita and Yamasaki, and then Kazuki Ota finishing 1 lap down. So hard to tell exactly what the gap was, but there's Uematsu and Yamashita. 2 third positions and a victory is not a bad way to go about racing. And they do have another good, strong starting position tomorrow. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Could well be a rain jacket kind of a day. Kones Racing will be really upset to be down in 3rd position to be down in retired position, picking up no spots because there's just not space in the championship for a drop score. With only 8 races across the year, you really do need to score in every race. And it was almost their secret last year that they didn't retire versus everybody else that had a few issues. In fact, if you look at it, the second position team that they beat retired twice. And yes, they had a bad weekend in Okayama last year where they missed the podium on both occasions. But other than that, a third, a second, a first, a third and a second. Iwamatsu, Miracolo Toyota. Let's try that again, shall we? Miracolo Tokyo. And Kenta Yamashita jumping out of the car. A big smile. And there is the hug you want to see. All the work done, though, really, by Uematsu. You have to say that Kenta Yamashita just held on. Didn't do more than he needed to. So even if the pace was great from the Super GT champion, Uematsu was the man that did all the work in that first part of the race, and an enjoyable first part of the race for him. As the media get their photos to celebrate, we get ourselves lined up for an interview with our victors. As I say, first time victory for Uematsu. He's been trying for a couple of years now. He's taken lots of victories, including the championship in AM, but now he's with the big boys. Now he's with the Pro-Ams, and he has won. Just to have a look quickly at the incident in turn number 1, not turn number 1, in lap number 1. Suinaga has been given a 5-place grid drop for next race for causing a collision, and interestingly the Lamborghini has also been given a 5-place grid penalty. So they're 19 and the 96. There is Jake Parsons. Got it as Australian flag on his belt. But we can go back down and hear from our victories with Hana.
I'm here with car number 88, the winners of Japan Cup Fuji Round 1. 優勝おめでとうございます。これはもしかして初めての FIGT3 の優勝ですか？
僕にとっては初めての GT3 の優勝です。はい。
なんかスティント1でトップ争いがなくなってしまって走り方を変えましたか？
走り方何？
変えましたか？作戦走り方。
そうですね。とにかくちょっと後半オーバーが出るの分かってたんで、タイヤをちょっとキープしながら後ろを一生懸命ブロックするのが大変だったんですけど、はい。タイヤをとりあえず壊さないように走りました。あとはやってくれると思ってましたから。はい。
マクラーレンのファンの皆さんに伝えたいことありますか？
そうですね、2022年このシリーズが始まってからずっと出てきて、アマチュアではチャンピオン3回取らせてもらったんですけど、総合優勝マクラーレンで初めてなんで、本当になんかね、いろんな応援してくれた方のことを考えるとね、なんかもう胸が熱くなります。はい。
おめでとうございます。ありがとうございます。So he said that it's actually Yamashita's first FIA GT3 win in his career, and Uematsu Senshu was saying that he really wants to let McLaren fans know that it's their first time winning in the Pro-Am category, and they're very, very happy about it. In his stint, after the 2 leading cars were gone, he was doing his best to take care of the tires and get ahead. Thank you.
I am going to speculate and say it's the first time a McLaren GT3 car has won in Asia. Certainly in GT World Challenge Asia it's not won, and certainly not in Japan Cup. Obviously other championships do run to GT3 regulations or use GT3 cars, but in terms of SRO, for sure, it's the first time we've got a McLaren. We rarely see McLarens in other championships across the world. They obviously run very successfully in Europe and are popular in British GT, but definitely history made. Hana's going to go and chat now with Ponos Racing, the local team.
I'm here with the winners of the GT3 AM class from Ponos Racing. おめでとうございます。今日のレースはどうでしたか？
予選がちょっとうまくいかなくて後ろからのスタートになったんですけども、落ち着いて走っている時に、アマのトップの車がクラッシュで離脱したので、そこから落ち着いてなんとかまだ取れてなかった1位を取ろうと、2人で落ち着いて走り切りました。ありがとうございました。
レースの一番大変なところを教えてください。
ジェントルマンらしく終わってからお酒を飲むことです。それが一番大変です。ありがとうございました。
それちょっと通訳できないかも。
OK ですか？Podium time. See you there.
Are you done with the interview?
Oh, that gentleman had a nice loud voice, didn't he? That kept everybody awake. And seemed very, very happy with the AM victory down there in 7th position. Ponos Racing, say, just around the corner here, so certainly will be happy with that, be able to take the celebrations back to the shop around the corner. And Hana can now talk to the GT4 category victors.
I'm here with the GT4 class winners. また優勝おめでとうございます。レースはどうでしたか？
いや、スタートでちょっと前の車に詰まっちゃって逃げ場がなくてグラベル入っちゃって最後尾に落としちゃったんですけど、またトップでたけしさんにバトンを渡せて、たけしさんが逃げしてくれたんですごく感謝してます。
富士でポルシェのストロングポイントはどこですか？
ポルシェの、富士との相性は、ストレートスピードが伸びるので、バトルになった時は有利かなと思うんですけど、BOP がものすごくうまくいってるので割とこう差もなく結構接戦のバトルになってるかなと思いますね。はい。
改めておめでとうございます。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
So they said that the Porsche is well fit for Fuji because the straight line speed is very fast, although the BOP is not working in their favor. They said that they were able to do a good job of getting ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, they did stretch their advantage quite a bit, didn't they, at the head of the GT4 category. And here are the highlights of Japan Cup race number 1. Here from Fuji, round 3 of the championship. And Lamborghini and Ferrari on the front row of the grid. A very strong qualifying from the Lamborghini, but absolutely mobbed at the start with Uematsu trying to get down the inside in his McLaren. Others ran wide as well, losing positions, including the 27 Audi. And this was the closest attack from Max Racing on Uematsu in that first stint. Nearly took out the Ponos Racing machine. Then there was contact between Lamborghini and Ferrari doubly, and that eliminated both cars with bent rear suspension. We then opened the pit lane and our AM drivers got in to hand over to the pros. Success penalties for those that had been strong in the first race of the year in Sugo. And then with pros in the car, Kenta Yamashita was able to deliver in the McLaren number 88 and stretch his advantage despite pressure on Jake Parsons. Motojima was able to get through on the Audi. That was a pretty clean move, but Takubamba, who was chasing down the number 27 machine, was never able to get past, and so Parsons held on to third, Motojima to second, but Kenta Yamashita with a 3.7 second advantage at the head of the field, unchallenged in the second half of the race, and a historical first victory for McLaren in Asia in Japan Cup. don't know if it's historical or historic. Here are your winners in the various classes. Miracolo Tokyo, the McLaren taking the overall victory in GT3 Pro-Am, the Am category for Ponos Racing, and GT4 as we've covered already. 3.7 seconds the gap between McLaren and Mercedes, with Audi in third position, just 0.3 of a second ahead of the best of the Ferraris, which was Norric Racing. Bingo Racing only fifth position. They'll be disappointed with that in their Porsche. Then K-Tune's Ponos car guy Galar, and the best of the GT4 cars, Zengo RS Garage with Sunrise Boulevard, Team Pop Race and E-Needs Racing, your 3 GT4 finishers. A retirement from 5-Star, a retirement from Corners Racing after contact with Spirit of FFF, and the Lexus also retiring after contact in race number 1. So the podium then, or the podiums plural. Overall first, Jake Parsons and Jesse Simoner. Max Racing their second position of the season. Oh, if they can only just get themselves onto the top step. But Mr. Uematsu and Kenta Yamashita, big smiles on their faces as they stand on the top step of the podium. Trophies once again presented to our top 3 drivers. So many victories for Kenta Yamashita. I'm sure he's very used to winning. Won in Fuji this year, in fact. They've already visited Fuji in Super GT. It was the last round of their championship, and he was on the top step of the podium. Has won the championship the last 2 years, but usually doesn't win at Fuji. Always takes the first win of the year for Toyota. For the last 5 years, he's won the first race of the year, would you believe, in Super GT. But now he can put an SRO trophy alongside those Super GT trophies, alongside his Super Formula wins, of which he has won. And alongside those Japanese Formula 3 victories and Challenge Japan victories, he won in every category that he's entered, apart from the World Endurance Championship that he raced during the COVID year with High Class Racing. Japan Cup, maybe one thing. Needs to start winning in GT World Challenge Asia. Maybe with victory this year, that will be the next step. That's the idea. Here's the Japanese Cup standings, the Japan Cup standings after 3 rounds. Just a single point separating the McLaren and the Mercedes, with our championship leaders coming into the weekend dropping to 3rd spot. No points for Corners Racing in 4th, with the Audi up to 5th position now. Thank you very much for joining us here in Fuji on a cloudy day in the foothills of Mount Fuji. We are going to be going racing tomorrow afternoon as well for both GT World Challenge Asia and Japan Cup Race 2s. Those clouds might be even closer to our racetrack tomorrow. We're expecting rain, and that means spice. I hope you enjoyed your action, and see you again soon. And a couple more podiums to celebrate before we say goodbye. And this is the podium then for the AM category in GT3, with Ponos Racing taking the victory ahead of Car Guy. And the third GT3 AM car was that car in which it stopped, was it not? Yes, I think it was. So somehow they managed to get back to the pits, the 5-star with Team Dream Drive. So despite not finishing, they still managed to get a chance to stand on the podium in third position. There was, of course, the fourth car, which was the Lamborghini, which retired earlier on in the race. The 4 GT3 AM category cars. And then we're going to go to the GT4 podiums will be next. It's an interesting coloured Mercedes in that shot. It's suddenly turned red. Pretty sure it's orange. And here is the championship standings in GT3 AM, with the Ponos Racing Ferrari with 61 points, 11 ahead of Spirit FFF Racing. The Lamborghini scoring nothing today, of course, with Kazuki Ota on his own in Car Guy Racing in third. And then the GT4 podium. I don't know if we're going to have 2 here, because of course we've got GT4 AM and GT4 Pro Am. I think we're just going to have 1 podium, aren't we? So there's Maya Orido. For a second, the Mercedes was on the leading. Maya managed to get ahead of the Porsche momentarily. And she definitely loves her racing. Noro Fukushima, the executive officer of Fuji Speedway, presenting the trophies to our top 3. And there is your Pro Am winners, but of course they are in a different category to the Am category drivers in second and third. They might be given a second load of trophies, maybe not. So GT4 Japan Cup winners, and then the Pro Am winners. So I think we may get another podium here. We might get the Am podium afterwards. And congratulations to our top 3. It's a class that deserves way more attention. Around the world, the GT4 cars need to be out more and more. There's 50 of them in Europe, and it's an incredibly entertaining format. We have a good grid in British GT. The split format is really, really entertaining as well. And the champagne sprays from our top 3. Does sound like this will be the last podium. So we can also celebrate here an AM victory for Maya and her teammate Shirasaka. And there are the overall standings in GT4 after our first 3 races. Maya Rido in third position, with Kelvin Ho, her teammate, Kunimoto and Okiyama from Akilan team, who are not here this weekend. But the Makino and Suruhiro Zengo RS Racing Sunrise Boulevard Porsche is your championship leaders. Thank you very much for following everything that we have to offer in the world of SRO GT Racing Japan Cup, and we'll see you tomorrow for race number 2 of Asia and Japan Cup. Bye-bye for now.